Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today's video is going to be me giving you guys a guide to pads. Basically me showing you guys how to put on every kind of pad out there and also when to use each kind, because trust me, I know how confusing it can be in the beginning. Hearing all these names like panty liner and regular and like maxi and overnight, it's like,
when do I use all of those and how do I put all of those on?
And honestly, in the beginning, like when I got my first period, I had my mom to tell me, but I know a lot of people out there do not have that, and I also know a lot of people out there like might have that but just still be confused about like, how do I put this on and when do I use each kind? Like when I got my first period, I leaked multiple times because I had literally no idea like what pad was right for me. And so I really hope that this video is going to help any of you guys out there if you just got your first period, or like if you've recently gotten your first period and you just need some guidance on like pads and like everything to do with pads. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you guys about the 4 kinds of pads that I use all the time, like the 4 most basic kinds of pads. I actually have them right here. These are the 4 that I'm going to be showing in this video, and they are all different kinds, and the brands that I will mention in this video will be linked down below, like if you guys want to go buy the packs of pads that I show in this video, like the pads that came from those packs. And I'm basically going to be telling you guys for each kind of pad how to put that kind of pad on, like an actual demonstration, like with an actual pair of underwear, not on me, but like, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm also going to be telling you guys when you should be using each kind of pad, like for what flow that you might have. Also in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to take off a pad and dispose of it correctly. So yeah, I really don't want to talk anymore. I want to give you guys a guide to pads, tell you guys how to put them on, how to put every kind of pad on, and also when to use every single kind of pad out there. So let's get into the video. So all pads come in different colors. Like as I showed you, the pads that I'm going to be showing in this video, they might not be in these colors. Even if it's the same like kind, even if it's an overnight pad, they don't all come in the same colors. Now if you're someone who wants to be like kind of discreet about periods, and like when you are in school and like you want to take your pads to the bathroom or something like that, I would not get bright colors like these. I would try to look for pads that are like light pink or like a light purple or just something that's not like as bright as this. But if you don't care, like totally get the bright colors. I think they're super fun. But first, before we get into the different kinds of pads and when to use them and how to put them on and everything, the most important thing that you have to do before this is to figure out what your flow is, because obviously all the different kinds of pads are basically for every single kind of different flow out there. And so if you don't know your flow yet, that is completely fine too. I will insert a chart here of how to determine what your flow is, if it's light, medium, or heavy. Feel free to pause and see which description applies to you and your flow. And if you've just gotten your first period and you're like,
Ruby, I haven't even had my period for like a day, how am I supposed to know what my flow is?
I would just choose moderate bleeding because it's like kind of in the middle and you don't know what your cycle will be like. So it's always good to not like choose super light, but to also not choose like super heavy. So I would pick moderate bleeding if you are on your first period, because in this video we are going to be using the terms light flow, medium flow, and heavy flow. So it is really important that like you know what all of those terms mean and like you know which ones apply to you, and basically just base it off of the bleeding that you've had so far. So like for example, let's say you've had 2 periods, okay, and your first period was super light and this one's like really heavy. I would pick moderate bleeding because that's kind of in the middle. Or if you've had 2 periods and they're both super light, then just pick light. Or if you've had 2 periods and they're both super heavy, then pick heavy. It all just depends on you personally. Personally for me, I have like a medium-ish flow except for the really heavy days, which is usually like day 2 of my cycle, like day 2 of my period, which is always the heaviest for me. And I also highly recommend pads with wings. There's some people out there who like think they're uncomfortable, but they're actually really not, and it offers you so much protection. I cannot begin to count the amount of times that I have almost leaked, but I didn't because the blood went on the wings of the pad. It is essential to get pads with wings, except for panty liners, which do not come with wings usually. And this actually leads me to the first kind of pad and like the lightest kind of pad, and you'll know what I'm talking about in a minute. And that is a panty liner. As you can see, these are really small. All the wrappers on the back will look different, but basically panty liners are used when your flow is like super light. So there are 3 times to use these: at the beginning of your period when it's light, at the end of your period when it's light, or you can just use this like when your flow is light in general. So those are the 3 times to use it. My period actually always starts off like really light, like barely anything, like spotting, like that's just how it starts, and that's actually how my first period started. But I personally would not recommend putting on a panty liner right when you get your period, like at the beginning of your period when it's super light. This is just because that I always worry that it'll suddenly get super heavy, and like this little panty liner obviously won't be able to contain that. So when I get my period, I never put on a panty liner right away. I always just put on like a regular pad, which we'll get to in just a minute. But the time I always wear panty liners is the end of my period, because it's when it gets like super light, like just little brown spots, and I don't want to waste like a regular size pad on that. So I'll just wear this, and sometimes I'll even wear this for like a couple days after my period leaves, just because my period always comes back even when I think it's gone. Like sometimes it does this, like it'll go away for a day and I'll be like, yay, the spotting's gone. And then I'll ruin my favorite pair of underwear with brown spotting. So I always wear these like right at the end of my period, and even after my period has ended, just for a couple days. And sometimes, since my periods have been so irregular in the beginning, I've had periods for like just over a year now. Sometimes I get like just weird periods where it's just a little bit of like random light brown spotting, and I don't want to waste like a regular size pad on that, so I just use a panty liner. So now for how to put on a panty liner. So basically it's very simple. What you're going to do is peel off the back of the panty liner so that you get to the sticky part, and then you're just going to stick it on your underwear. And you don't want to put it too forward because then you might bleed on the back of your underwear, but you also don't want to put it too back because then you might bleed on the front of the underwear. Just try to make it as centered as possible. I would actually even press down on the panty liner if your hands are clean. Just make sure that it's on and like it's stuck on your underwear and like it won't fall off, because these don't have wings, so they're not as secure. So the next kind of pad, and this is the most basic kind of pad out there, is a regular size pad. This is an example of one. As you can see, it's obviously like in a package, and these are the most common kinds to use if you have like a light to medium flow, or even like a heavy flow, like if you wear it during the day. I wear these throughout the day if my flow isn't like super light or super heavy, just like if it's kind of in between, like a medium flow. Usually at the beginning of my period, like day 1, I'll wear these like when it's medium, and then near the end of my period, like right before the brown starts coming. These actually come both after and before panty liners, so let me explain that. So if you wear panty liners at the beginning of your period, like when your period is just starting and it's super light, then right after you stop using the panty liners, when it gets a little heavier, then you'll graduate to these. And before you switch to panty liners, like at the end of your period when it starts to like taper off and get super light, then I would also wear these. Like after you've kind of gone over like the peak of like heaviness of your period, I would wear these if your period is like not going away just yet, but like it's still there and like there's still blood and everything, of course. So these are actually very simple to use. These are kind of thin because they're regular pads. They're not maxi pads or overnight pads, which we will get to in this video. So basically you're just going to open the wrapper, and it's gonna sound like really loud, so honestly I would do this in private, like in your own private bathroom, or like obviously with no one else in the bathroom if you don't want anyone else to hear this noise, but it's completely natural, so do not be embarrassed of it. So you're just going to open the pad, and then you will see obviously the pad, and you'll see the wrapper still behind it. So then all you do is peel the wrapper. Like for example, this one is yellow, so you'll peel it off the back so that you get to the sticky part, and then you will stick the pad in your underwear. And as I said, like with the panty liners, it's so hard to center this, so you want to make sure that like you really take your time to like look at your underwear and like make sure that you're putting it in the right position. And once you think you've got it in the right position, just stick it on. As I said, with a clean hand, maybe pat it down so that you make sure it sticks onto the underwear. If you have a pad with wings, there will be like a little sticker covering the wings, because obviously the wings are also sticky. So you're just gonna peel the sticker off and then wrap the wings around, and the wings are sticky so they should stick. And make sure to like do this really well, like really grab onto the wings in the crotch of your underwear. I know that sounds really weird, but you don't want the pad to fall off or like be weird or something like that. And then after that, you can just pull up your underwear, you're good to go. And for regular pads, I would change these every, let me actually see how often you're supposed to change regular pads. How often do you change regular sized pads? So changing your pad every 3 to 4 hours if your period is just kind of in between. That seems about right. Like every 3 to 4 hours when you're wearing just a regular sized pad. Change it every 3 to 4 hours, and also feel free to come back to this video as much as you need to see the demonstration if you like forget how to put the pad on. This video is always here for you, like for anyone who just needs help or like even a refresher on how to put a pad on correctly. And I'm still not like a pro at it. I mean, sometimes I put it too forward or like too back, but that's why it's so important to center it and make sure that the wings are on tightly, just so you avoid it like falling off or like you avoid leaking or something like that. Oh, and also I wanted to say, throw any wrappers or like anything that covered the sticky part of it, just throw that away in the garbage. I'm actually on my period right now as I'm filming this video, and I'm wearing a regular size pad right now, and I'm actually having like really bad cramps now. I'm actually filming a period week in my life while I'm on my period. Definitely subscribe to stay tuned for that video coming really soon, like me walking you through what it's like to be on your period, like
The whole entire period.
So now we are on to maxi pads, and this is honestly the kind of pad that I just love because it's like so big and like protective. You know what I'm talking about? I wear these a lot of the time, like when I'm having a medium to heavy flow, or like just if I want more protection. Sometimes if my flow like isn't even that heavy, but I'm at a sport or like an event or something like where I can't change my pad for a long amount of time, or like where I want to make sure that I won't leak, I will wear this kind of pad. If you are someone with a really heavy flow, these should replace regular pads for you, or on day 2, which is known to be the heaviest day of your period, like the day after the day you get your period, I would definitely wear these. And then you can switch back to regular pads like as your flow gets more moderate and as it gets lighter. So you're going to put on a maxi pad exactly the same as you put on a regular pad. So just peel off the wrapper and then stick it on your underwear. Maxi pads are almost better if you like don't want to worry about the whole centering thing, because they really like cover the whole parameters of your underwear. But definitely make sure to wash your hands and then just kind of pat it down so that it sticks onto your underwear. And then again, if it has wings, just peel off that little wrapper and wrap the wings around the crotch of your underwear. And then of course throw all the wrappers away and you're good to go. For these kinds of pads, I would recommend like if you have a really heavy flow, like you're soaking one of these like every couple hours, then change it every couple hours. Or if this is something where like you have a medium or like light flow but you still want to use these, then I would even change it like every 4 to 6 hours if you're just wearing this to be careful. last kind of pad that you are most likely going to want to use all the time once you hear of it, because it's literally my favorite kind of pad just because it's so protective, is an overnight pad. And as you can see, these are the biggest kinds of pads out there. Like, it's even a little bigger than a Maxi pad. And the name of these pads basically tells you when to use it, which is overnight, which is like basically when you're sleeping. Before you go to bed, just put one of these on, like right before you go to bed. Like, I always use the bathroom right before I go to sleep just because I don't want to like wake up and have to pee in the middle of the night, so I just always put one of these on right before I go to bed. And these are used for medium to heavy flow nights, and even when I have a light flow night, I always put these on because I'm worried I'm gonna wake up and then it'll be like a huge heavy morning. So I always wear overnight pads until my period's over, just like in case it surprises me with its heaviness. But like when my period is super light, like I'm wearing panty liners during the day, I will usually wear a regular pad to go to sleep, so then I don't waste overnight pads. But as I said, sometimes I am paranoid and I just sleep with overnight pads the entire time I'm on my period. And actually, these don't even just have to be used for overnight. I actually wear these during the day all the time because, as I said, I have such a heavy flow sometimes. Or even if you're like not able to change your pad for a while, just like if you have a super heavy flow some days, like even on day 2, and you just like don't want to worry about it all day. Like for example, if you're at school for like even around the same amount of time that you might sleep, like 7 to 8 hours, then wear this pad and then you won't have to worry about it during school all day. Like, I honestly just love overnight pads so much. They're like my protector, my best friend ever. Because honestly, they just make sleeping on your period like so much easier. I actually did a whole video on the struggle of sleeping when you're on your period. I gave some tips and tricks for like not leaking when you're on your period and like you're asleep. I'll link that video right here. But basically, like, one of the struggles is you might leak overnight, like if you're just lying in bed, like where you obviously can't change your pad for so long. So overnight pads come to the rescue when you are obviously asleep and like you can't get up to change your pad. Like honestly, if you're going to buy like one kind of pad, I would honestly buy overnight pads just because like they're so protective and like they'll really reduce that risk. Like, they're so important for reducing the risk of leaking. So putting on an overnight pad is actually a little more complicated than you would think because they're literally so long. They honestly cover like the whole crotch and even like the front and the back, like the butt area of my underwear, which is why I love them so much. Like, they're so protective. And if you want to wear these during the day, unless you're wearing like super tight pants, don't worry, no one will be able to see this. I know it's a huge insecurity that people will be able to see like your pad, but they really can't. Like, when I look in the mirror, like my butt in the mirror, like when I'm on my period and I'm wearing one of these, I always think I'm gonna see it, but like I never do, so don't worry about that. Anyway, what you're gonna do is just the same for regular and Maxi pads. Just peel off the wrapper and then take it off the back, and you might be a little overwhelmed because it's literally so long, but this is what I personally like to do. So I always start with the front, and actually for this kind of pad, you're able to go more in the front because usually I prioritize like the back of like my underwear when I'm on my period, because like when you're sitting, it naturally goes to the back, and just like a bodily like explanation for that, like that's where the blood comes out, like from your private part, if you know what I'm talking about. But for overnight pads, you can actually put it more in the front because it might leak toward the front, like when you're lying down in that position. So start with the front. Don't put it like right next to like the hem of the underwear, but put it like a couple inches down, and then kind of just spread it out with a clean hand. Just really stick it to your underwear, and then make sure that it is far back enough. If it isn't far back enough, you can always kind of slide it. I know that sounds a little weird, but then you don't have to like take it off and ruin the stickiness of it. Just kind of slide it, and then take off the little wrapper that keeps the stickiness of the wings like sticky, and then wrap the wings around it, and you should be good to go. When you pull up your pants with this kind of pad on, I promise you it will feel like a diaper, like the kinds that you used to wear when you were like a baby. But I promise this is like so just protective, so you'll definitely feel like really good about yourself like going to sleep like this. And if you're like someone who has a super heavy flow and you're worried that an overnight pad might not be enough, you can even layer these overnight pads or like put them like next to each other or like stack them, if you know what I'm talking about. And obviously these kinds of pads can last even up to 12 hours. Like if you're someone who sleeps a lot, like I'm not gonna pretend that I get 12 hours of sleep, but if you are someone who gets a lot of sleep, then this will totally cover you. I will actually link this brand of overnight pads down below. I love this brand so much. I've never leaked with this brand. I will link it down below, but definitely make sure if you don't want to buy that kind to make sure that it says on the box like up to 12 hours or like up to 8 hours protection, like for however long you sleep. And also make sure that it has wings, because that is one of the most important parts of an overnight pad. So now I'm just going to do like a quick little section on how to take off a pad, and obviously like for YouTube's purposes and like just graphic purposes, I'm not going to be showing actual menstrual blood. The red that you see is just some marker drawing on it just to make it look a little more realistic. So basically when you're taking off a pad, you're just going to literally take it off. I always start from the front and just rip it off of your underwear. This might sound weird, like almost like you're opening a bag of potato chips. Honestly, the whole process of putting pads on and taking them off sounds like potato chips. I have no idea why. But anyway, once it's off, just start from the top and basically roll the pad up, because the preserved stickiness from the back will like allow it to like keep itself rolled up. And then actually it's really smart to do this when you're changing your pad. Use the wrapper from the next pad that you're changing into to wrap up this disposed pad and then throw it in the garbage. That's what I personally always do. It's just so important to know how to put on pads, like every single kind of pad, and when to use every single kind of pad, how often to change it, how to take them off. It's just so important to know all of that because it'll help you feel so much more comfortable and like secure whenever you are on your period. Anyway anyway guys, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching it. I really hope that this video was able to help you out by basically just giving you a guide to pads, and like I really hope you learned a lot when to use each kind of pad and like how to put each kind on. I feel like I really wanted to go into detail in this video to like really help you guys out. So I really hope that you really learned something from this video and like now you know how to put on pads correctly. If so, comment down below like if you know how to do it now, but also like if you're still a little confused if I didn't cover everything in this video, definitely feel free to leave questions down below about putting on pads, taking off pads, when to use each kind of pad, how often to change them, just like any other questions that you might have about pads in general. I always reply to all of my comments, so I will answer you as soon as I can. And as I said, all of the pads that I mentioned in this video, all of these in like packs will be linked down below for you guys to go check out, like if you like the way these kinds look, because these are the ones that I personally use and I'm very happy with them. And so yeah, before you leave, please like this video, and if you made it to the end of this video, comment down below putting on a pad, and also please subscribe to my YouTube channel just to get tons more period help and like advice content, because if you didn't know, I literally make so many period videos, it is insane. I have a whole period playlist on my channel, and I have so many other period videos planned to come out in the future. So if you are someone who has just gotten their first period, or like you know friends who have just gotten their first period, you can send my channel to them. Or like if you're about to get your first period, or like even if you've had your period for a while, you want to learn more about periods, get some period tips, definitely make sure to subscribe because I do so much period content on my channel. And yeah, that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching it, and I love you guys. Bye!